Yeah, it is Jason Martinez. It is Brian Smith. We are back from the Christmas break. The Flyers are back from the Christmas break. Late night Flyers after dark hockey, 10:30 puck drop in San Jose. Welcome back, boys. No sleep for you tonight. What's going on, Brian? Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, it's good. How about yourself?
It was good. It was hectic.
Yeah.
Just got back about an hour ago from Annapolis for a hocky tournament, which
Yep.
was very successful. So we'll take it.
Tis the season for all of us and stuff like that, right? When we're all running around and trying to get stuff like that in. So yeah, it's been a good break here, and yeah, ready to get going. Flyers one of the last teams to really get back going. With everybody else that's already out there doing stuff. So they'll be raring to go here tonight, and got a couple of good storylines, I think.
Yeah, if it's weird because it's only been since last Friday where they played, so it's been 6 days, game to game, if you will, and it feels like an eternity. And I know Torch was asked about this the other day, but is this, it's not the official midway point of the season. We're still 6 games from that, but it is a way to kind of reset, recalibrate, and kind of rest up mentally and get ready for this next stretch of the season.
Yeah, it's always been kind of a I guess an unofficial second half, if you will. I mean, we're only 7 or 8 games short of the halfway point, so there's quite a bit of hockey to be played, but it's pretty close. And there's also been a lot of chatter, especially this year, about this year's there used to be there used to be like an unofficial milestone that Thanksgiving was the time. The teams that were in the playoffs at Thanksgiving, 9 times out of 10 were going to be the teams that were in the playoffs at the end of the year. And now there's chatter that sort of thing is like, that's moved back to Christmas. So, the Christmas break now is come and gone. So we're going to get to see here, I guess, how close that is in terms of reality, and whether these Christmas teams that are in the playoffs are the ones that make the splash at the end of the year. But yeah, for a lot of teams, it is that reset, those 3 days off. For some players, it's the first 3 days they get to see their family since the season started. If they're not home, or they have a lot of places to go. So it's a good spot.
Yeah, you look at the standings and you look at the Metro. Top of the Metro is the team the Flyers saw last is the Carolina Hurricanes, who've won 9 straight and have been unbelievable lately. 52 points, and all of a sudden they're 6 points up on the Devils. Like, how did that happen? I know how it happened. The Devils went 2-7-1 in their last 10.
Yeah, I think the Devils kind of came back down to earth a little bit there. We were
crashed them to earth.
We were all watching that, going, "My goodness, how are these guys doing this? Like, what is this? Yeah. This is not what we thought we were going to see out of New Jersey this year." And as the old saying goes, I think all water finds its level, or however you want to put it. So I think that's a little bit of what happened there. And it's always kind of fascinating to watch. Very few teams that win the Stanley Cup do so by peaking in October and November. So it's why you obviously don't want to get too far behind, because it takes a lot of energy to try to catch up. But at the same time, it's never been a matter of panicking if your team was having a bad winter month.
Yeah, I mean, you look at all the other teams that are in playoff position in the Eastern Conference, and over the last 10, you got a 7-1-2, a 7-2-1, 7-3. That's the top 3 teams in the Atlantic: Boston, Toronto, Tampa. Then 9-0-1, 8-1-1, 6-2-2, 7-2-1. That's Carolina, Washington, Pittsburgh, and the Rangers. And then the one outlier, 2-7-1, is the Devils. They're the only team that's really been struggling of late. So maybe that's a harbinger of things to come in their unofficial second half. We shall see. The other saying is a rising tide raises all boats. We know the Metro is a good division, but it has not raised the boat of the Flyers or the Columbus Blue Jackets, the bottom 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. But the Flyers, probably they've been scoring more goals of late. They've scored 16 goals for an average of 4 goals per game over their last 4. And that's good that they've been scoring more goals and crawling their way back into games. The only problem is they've given up 19 and they've lost 3 of those last 4.
Right. And what you're seeing to me is you're seeing a team that is obviously still trying to figure it out, but at the same time, they're doing things that seem to have, at least for the time being, the effect that they want it to have. At first you had a team that was giving up way too many scoring chances per game. but they had a goaltender who was, keeping them in games. And then obviously Carter Hart came back down to earth a little bit. And then, they started to buckle down better defensively, but at the same time, it came with not having any offense whatsoever. And so then they start focusing on the offense. And as they do that, it seems to be the case that, they're starting to get a little weak defensively again. So they just got to dial this in here. They got to just find the happy medium, if you will, of good defensive play while also generating some offensive chances. And again, there's really not a lot at stake win loss wise for this team this year. It's a win driven league, but it's really, in the grand scheme of things for the Flyers, not necessarily the primary focus right now. So they just want to get to a point where they can, try to figure out how to even those things out and, just establish some consistency as they head here into the second half of the season.
Well, one of the big storylines over the last couple of days, and we'll get to this game against San Jose tonight in just a moment, but one of the big storylines obviously has been the play of Carter Hart. When I talked to John Tortorella, he was on the podcast last week, I had mentioned to him that, the play of Hart is even more important because it's kept his team in games. And, how much Torts values that element, Bri, of, if you're playing in a game or in a part of the season that has no meaning, your success is kind of mitigated in a way because the games didn't mean anything. Well, Carter's kept them in games. So there's been more minutes played this season that have meant more. Now, what the big storyline the other day is that he comes back from break. He's at practice on Tuesday or Monday, I guess it was. And then the next day on Tuesday, he goes on IR and he's practicing again. And people were freaking out. And it would have taken a really simple Google search on NHL concussion protocol to realize that is not only normal, it is part of the return to play protocol. Now, you got to consider the source with some of these people that freaked out, but this is what happens when you throw hot take after hot take out there.
Yeah.
But part of the protocol to come back, first part is sedentary, when you're not working out and you're symptom free. Then you have to go into a level, which is stage 7 of the protocol. I've memorized this by now. And I didn't know this before, but I Google searched it. They have to get into exertion levels to see if any symptoms, headaches, blurred vision, anything, it happens as a result of exertion. And you have exertion by practicing. This is normal protocol. But I know it freaked a lot of people out because of the IR designation, which is Torts referred to, was a bit of a paper transaction.
It is. That
was retroactive back to the 24th.
Yeah, the only reason that Carter Hart had to go on IR was to create a roster spot for Sam Ersson. Yeah. I didn't see this definitively, but I'm pretty sure that when Ersson was recalled, it was on emergency conditions. I don't know if that was actually put out there or not, but the way the NHL transaction system works is you can recall a goaltender on emergency conditions. You could do it with a skater too, but it happens a lot more often with a goalie. That if somebody's sick, somebody can't go, you can recall a goalie on emergency conditions, which means temporarily you can exceed the roster limit in the NHL has of 23 players. And so that's what they did to get Ersson on the team for the Carolina game. Was for both those games, I think, was emergency conditions. But regardless, now it's the emergency's gone. So they had to clear a roster spot in order to get him on there. And by putting Carter Hart on IR, they clear that roster spot. If he was, the plan that John Tortorella outlined was for him to try to play again on Saturday in Los Angeles. If you go on IR, you got to miss 7 days. They put him on retroactively to the Carolina game. And by the time you get to that LA game, that's 8 days. So there was no harm in putting him on IR. That's the path they chose to take to get Sam Ersson on the roster. So that's really all there was to it.
Yeah. So you have these paper transactions. We see them quite a bit where we see so-and-so was assigned to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms when the team is 3 days off. Well, it doesn't mean they get in their car and they drive to Lehigh Valley.
Right.
A lot of times that's just a paper transaction. You get bank cap space and those kind of things as well.
I mean, they happen a couple different ways. Sometimes if the team's got, if we go to the All-Star break, for instance, Flyers will send certain players to Lehigh Valley because the AHL All-Star breaks at a different time, so they can go down there and play games and stuff while the NHL is on. It's that now that they've got that extended break, I think they can do that. But there are other times when they do it for cap reasons, and Flyers aren't up against the cap, but they have been obviously in the past. And you can, if you have 3 days off, you can send a guy to the AHL, get him off your cap because the cap is calculated on a daily basis. You can get them off your cap and save those days toward the end of the season, and it doesn't matter because your team's off and they're not playing. So it's a little bit of a funky world we live in here with this with the CBA and all that.
We'll talk about Sam Ersson and one of the reasons why Torts wanted him to get this game tonight anyway. But before we go to our first break, Brent Boothman messaged in and says, if Jason had his way, the game would have already started already.
Oh.
Hashtag no more 10:30. I'm fine with 10:30 games, Brett, just not when an East Coast team is going out there to play the game. 10 o'clock's the latest you can go. I understand you don't want to go at 5 o'clock West Coast time because people are in work most of the time. I get it. 10:30 though, come on. Now you're just messing with us.
At least we get a little bit of a reprieve on Saturday.
We do actually, yeah.
That's a very good start time. I'll take that all day long,
especially on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we've Flyers ring in the New Year in Southern California a lot, so we're used to this. But that LA game usually moves around, and sometimes it's been 6 o'clock Eastern. Sometimes it's been. I mean, I have been in the Fanatic studio at the stroke of midnight. I've got pictures to prove it.
Watch the ball
so
drop.
There's been games that haven't been moved up. So you've been stuck on the East Coast here, bringing in the new year with a hockey game. But this is a game that's right in the wheelhouse on Saturday.
No question about it. Let's take our first break. We're back with more. It's Brian Smith, Jason Martinez. It is Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Yeah, a little bit. I was down in Annapolis for my son's tournament all weekend, so we destroyed everybody. We outscored our opponents 27-3 in 4 games. 2 goose eggs. Yeah. My one goalie didn't give up a goal the whole weekend. Yeah. The team we beat in the final, we beat them 4-0 in the first game, and then we beat them today 9-1. Yeah. Belted them good. Yeah. Yeah, you knew that was coming. Yeah, he's not bad. Yeah, stop. Yeah, he's unbelievable. Maybe we should do these games this late more often. We got a lot of viewers tonight. What's up, everybody on the stream? Hope everybody had a good holiday.
I am sitting here probably looking disinterested. I had a lot of issues with our radio commercials tonight, and so I'm trying to catch up a little bit.
Let's bring up the old Eastern Standard Time here. The Tim and Coates are out there, correct?
They are, yep. Actually, Timmy called me earlier to let me know it was Koskinen or something like that. Does he play for San Jose?
Koskinen?
I don't know. I can't even remember what he told me. Their goalie tonight.
All right. It is Jason Martinez, Brian Smith. It is Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway. It's Koskinen tonight, Brian, not
That's right.
Koskinen.
That's the word I was looking for, yes.
Yeah, Koskinen.
There's too many of these guys that sound alike out here.
Yes. They also have a guy named Eetu Makaniemi. He's only played 2 games for him this year, but it's not going to be him or Arundel or James Reimer tonight, which would have been much easier. It is going to be Kaapo Kakkonen tonight.
I mean, it's fun for us just because we get to hear Coatsy try to say.
Yeah.
That's where the fun is for us. Is we try as hard as we can to to put Steve Coates in a bad situation.
Well, you know who Coach's favorite goalie is of all time?
Well,
Billy Smith.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I remember when the Rangers had Shesterkin and Georgiev. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, not only could you keep the two straight, you couldn't pronounce either of them.
Yeah. Well, speaking of goaltending, Sam Harrison's going to get his second NHL start tonight. And a big reason why he gets the start tonight is something that we talked about post-game, Bri, is the fact that he got shoved back into that Carolina game. He gets the hook in his first NHL game. We talked about it between the second and third, that he was going to be, in this situation where that's when immediately, the psychology of rebuilding him mentally goes, because I'm not, you go through all these things. My first NHL game, that one game does not define you, and all that process was going to begin. But it actually starts immediately. And because it starts with no time to think about your second game, you get thrown back into that fire. And he came back in and he played well in that third period, made saves that he needed to make, built a little confidence, and the team rallied back in the game, having his back. And they get within one goal. They make it 6-5. And he earns himself this start tonight because Torts really liked how he battled when he got back in there. And I think a big element of that is the kid had no time to think. He had to just go back in. Carter got hurt, came out, and he goes back in and has to just rely on instinct and not the brain playing games on you between the ears.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm not waxing philosophic here or sounding silly, but I do find myself sitting here wondering, what would have become of Samuel Ersson if he hadn't gone back in that game. It is interesting when you look at it, because we have seen over the years our share of goalies in this organization who have been one and done. The two that jump to mind immediately for me are Johan Backlund and Martin Uhl. Guys that they were up for whatever reason, as a backup, as an injury, whatever, and got in for one game. And for Martin Uhl's case, he got in for 3 minutes and never got back again because the circumstances just didn't get him there. And so with this situation with Ersson, I mean, he comes up last game and he has a really rough first 25, 30 minutes of it, and then he gets pulled. Again, you're sitting there thinking, my goodness, what's next? What happens to me now? And if that game goes by and he doesn't get back in, that thought is with him the entire Christmas break.
Yep.
Get on the other side of this and Felix Sandstrom is fine. He's not ill. So the Flyers would they have sent him back down? I don't know. Would they have sent Sandstrom back down and kept Ersson? I don't know. The problem is that Ersson's waiver exempt and Sandstrom is not. So he would have had to clear waivers. So now we are in a situation because of that injury. First of all, Ersson gets back in, and he has a great last 10 minutes or whatever. That changes your mentality and your mental point completely. And with the injury, you can kind of be happy about it now because it was not severe. But Ersson gets another shot at it. So that one play, we'll see. But that one play, you never know how it could affect Ersson's career trajectory from here on out.
Yeah, you have no idea what that can do for a guy. So it's an interesting element, and what should be an interesting game as the Flyers return to play tonight in San Jose. Now, recall earlier this season, December, I want to say off the top of my head, without looking, October 27th, Game 7 of the season, the Flyers played against San Jose, and they lost 3-0 in that game. I'm looking back now to see if that's the actual date, but they lose 3-0 against San Jose in that game, and that's the first big night of John Tortorella making his mark, where he benches Konechny and Hayes in the third period.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, all these games later, let me see. Let me schedule here. I'm going to see if I was right on both the 27th and the 7th game of the season, because I'm just going off memory. All right, so it is 6th game of the season, and it was October 23rd. Damn, the 7th game was actually October 27th. That was against Florida, so I was close. But 3-0 loss against San Jose in that game. And actually, Sandstrom played in it as well.
Yeah.
And this one, all these months later, a couple months later now, Travis Konechny sitting at the top of the team in points and has been just very consistent for the group. but his PK duties have been a big, big difference. So the Flyers will look to avenge that loss back on the 6th game of the season.
That was one of those games where, again, things were not going well for the Flyers as an organization, I think, and the goaltenders didn't have a good night, and John Tortorella chose to use that third period to try to set a couple of guys straight. We talked about it at the time as, okay, you're going to give up the battle to win the war, so to speak. You're going to have. They could have probably made a run at things against San Jose.
They're only down 2-0 going into the third.
Yeah, with those guys in the lineup in the third period. But they chose to make a point, and I guess you could say, you have to ask them about it, but you probably could say that did a whole lot towards setting Travis Konechny in the right direction for all the time since then. Didn't have quite the effect, I don't think, on Kevin Hayes. It did. I think it worked for a while, but he's kind of obviously wandered off again. He had a full game scratch a few games back. But yeah, it's a good situation here, I think, for the Flyers. And the other there was a little bit of an intangible there, the emotion of Oscar Lindblom's first game back in Philadelphia with San Jose. That was involved in that as well. So a little bit more, I guess, normal situation here tonight. Oscar's either playing his 300th game tonight or he's getting close. So that's a great milestone for him. But it certainly won't carry the weight of that first visit back to Philly.
No question about it. Let's take our last time out here on the pregame show. We'll take you up to the countdown to face off and all the first period action from San Jose with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. We'll give you the Flyers line combinations. Now we'll tell you there's some changes on the D. So keep it right here. We'll tell you about those coming up. It is Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
Hey, Mike, you hear me all right? First period is in.
Gotta drink some caffeine at this time of night.
Sorry, Jay, I just had my headphones still.
Gotta drink some caffeine at this time of night just to get us to the end.
Yeah, I was going to say, I may have to take a nap during the second period. We'll see how this goes.
As long as the team doesn't, we'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. No napping for the team.
Our final game today wasn't until 4:10. They gave us a late checkout, so me and Evan slept in today. We got up a little breakfast.
We were out tonight visiting two Bernese Mountain Dog puppies that we're going to bring home.
Oh, my God. Love those.
So
I like those and the Swiss Mountain Dogs.
Been a crazy
the Swissies. The Swissies are just like the same color markings as the Burmese, but they're shorter hair, more like a little bit like a Rottweiler.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not as furry. All right. All right. It is Flyers Game Day. The return tonight from the holiday break, Flyers and San Jose Sharks to get things back underway. I guess this is kind of the middle game of this road trip, all said and done, because in paper it's a 5-gamer, 2 before the break, 3 after.
Yeah, the Flyers have had this situation before where they've had a couple of road games before the break, and then they go on the break. This is an annual thing. They're always on the West Coast this time of year because Disney on Ice is at Wells Fargo Center. Sometimes it's a 6-game swing in between Christmas and really not New Year's, but like the week after New Year's. Sometimes they've got a couple games on the front end before the break. So, we've always kind of looked at it just as 2 separate road trips in this particular situation. I mean, they not only did they come back home to go home for Christmas, but then they came back to Voorhees and practiced for 2 days before they went again. So
that's rare.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't happen very often. In fact, you saw the Toronto Maple Leafs got dinged a couple of bucks for flying on the 26th.
If you consider $100,000 a couple bucks, I want to hang out with you.
Yeah. Well, that happened to the Flyers about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah,
the same thing. my recollection is they only got fined $50,000 that time, but it was really just, I mean, a lot of teams, they do this for CBA reasons, and they kind of have to, I guess. But if you're telling me as a hockey player that you either have to fly out at 6 a.m. the day of the game, which is what everybody else did, or you're going to fly out at late on the 26th and get there and be in your normal routine. I'm doing the second thing every single time. Now, what Elliot Friedman was saying was that the Leafs were supposed to fly on the 27th
at 12:01.
Got moved up for whatever reason. But at any rate, the point is the Flyers had a couple extra days off that they don't normally get. Normally they're right back at it on the 27th, or they're back into the 28th, something like that. So they did get a couple extra days off there. Maybe a couple of days to work on some things, the practice time that they had. So, hopefully they can see that start to pay off on this trip.
Well, let's give you the Flyers line combinations. Let's start up front. Of course, we thank Olivia Reiner for tweeting these out as she's on the road. We got Morgan Frost centering James Van Riemsdyk and Owen Tippett. No change there. Cates centering Farabee and Konechny. Then Lawton centering Kevin Hayes and Wade Allison. And then Patrick Brown centering Zach McEwen and Nick Delare. Here's where the changes are, Bri. York moving up to that top pair to play on the right side with Ivan Provorov. We saw this last year a little bit. We liked the combination last year.
Yeah, this was again, last year things were kind of moving around a little bit, injuries or whatnot. This is one of the things that Cam York did when he first, got up to the Flyers last year, and it had a good look to it. We did like what we saw there, and so as he's become more comfortable here at the NHL level after starting the season in Lehigh Valley, it's another look that the Flyers want to see. They want to see, still trying to figure out obviously what all they've got, and in terms of the defense, it a lot of it depends on how guys look with other guys, and for York, they're moving them left to right, and that sort of thing. So they're trying to get a bunch of different looks just to see exactly what they have. So that's going to be a look tonight, at least to start, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so York along with Provorov, and D'Angelo on the right side on the pairing with Travis Sanheim. We saw that before the break. We'll see that again tonight. And then Ristolainen, who was playing a lot on the top pair with Ivan Provorov, is going to play on the third player with Nick Seeler. Ristolainen's game seems like it dropped off a little bit, and it's not because he shoved a player into Morgan or into Carter Hart. That's not why he's been moved down. But you got to look at all these combinations, and it will be Sam Ersson tonight in that for the Flyers against Kakkonen for the San Jose Sharks. So the one guy you really got to keep an eye on for San Jose, I can't believe how much you got to keep an eye on him right now. And that's got to be Erik Karlsson, because he has been having just an unbelievable season. And I didn't think he was capable of getting back to this level of play, Bri, but he has been unreal this year for a guy that's had some pretty unreal offensive seasons throughout his NHL career.
Yeah, I mean, I've always looked at him as a guy that, I'm good. You guys can, some other team can have him. I've never been, too high on him, jumping into a Flyer uniform or anything like that.
Not for the money
his offensive capabilities have gotten him to the All-Star game on several occasions. And when you have a defenseman putting up 82 points, you don't really care that he doesn't play defense. You're good. You just the things that you look at as his career went on. His last year in Ottawa, minus 25. His second year in San Jose, minus 15, minus 18 in the shortened season of 2020, 2021. He's already got more points, way more points, considerably more points through 36 games this year than he did all of last year when he only played 50 games. So, he seems to have found a second wind here, and certainly the Sharks are going to benefit from that.
He wants out, is what it is. That's the wind. 12 more points than the second leading scorer on the team, and he's a D-man. He's got 48 points in 36 games. All right, stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, they are in San Jose. They've got the countdown to face off, all the first period action as the Flyers return tonight against the San Jose Sharks. Post-holiday hockey on tap, Flyers After Dark. That's coming up right after this. You're listening to Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network.